You hear the plane outside? You hear it? I hear a plane. The plane's always flying into LaGuardia Airport from where I'm at. Ralph Perez here from Bronx Cafe to present to you the equipment I'm going to use to shoot the Veil Nebula. What is the Veil Nebula? Well, let me explain. The Veil Nebula is actually what's called a supernova remnant. It is the remains of a star that blew itself up a long time, like thousands. I think scientists have recorded like several thousand years ago. I don't know exactly the number, but when you look at it, you see it kind of almost as a bubble, but it's a really big bubble. It doesn't really look like a perfect bubble. It's all broken up, but the point is that the gases from that explosion are still expanding outward at an incredible speed. And it's located in the constellation of Cygnus. The Swan, which at this time of the year, we're in mid-July now, is directly overhead at night. So it's a perfect opportunity for astrophotography. Now, can you shoot it here in the Bronx? Yes, with the proper equipment. And this is what I have right here. As some of you are familiar with it, this is the Skywatcher Star Adventurer 2i, which is a star tracker where it actually helps with the long exposures. You need long exposures, 2 to 3 minutes of exposure time to capture deep sky objects. And the idea is that, and let me just undo the clutch here, as time goes on, let's say I'm pointing at the Veil Nebula with this. Over time, over the course of the night, I take like about maybe anywhere between 30 and 60 shots of 3 minutes each. That's what my plan is to do with this. And the idea is that as the Earth turns, it compensates for the Earth's rotation, kind of like a clock. It kind of like goes like this. It turns over time. You know, in the beginning, I'm shooting like this, and then I go back out into the yard. All of a sudden, it's way over here because the sky keeps moving over time. So that's what helps with that. So I'm using that. This is a great tool for those of you who really want to do this here in the city, in the Bronx, or anywhere actually. You could go upstate or in a very deep sky, which obviously there's no substitute for a real, truly deep sky in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to do a couple videos on that. And the idea is that this tracker does the job in tracking. Now, you could get this tracker actually for around like between $400 to $500. It's quite economical compared to the really big ones that are like in the thousands, and people are like, damn, that's a lot of money, you know. So to start for a beginner astrophotographer, that you want to get into the hobby and just start something introductory, I recommend this. Actually, there's a updated version of this called the GTI, which I kind of want to get because it does a few more extra things. But it's the same principle, it's the same idea. So what I have here a Canon T4i camera, right? It's an older camera that they've upgraded to, I think they're up to T8 or T9i. It's a Rebel series crop sensor, regular camera. But this camera has been modified. It's the filter inside that takes in regular light has been taken out because you don't want that for deep sky objects, right? You want to see that infrared from the glowing gases in space. So you can take this out. Can you not? Do you have to do that? No, you can still get good shots with a regular camera without having messing with the filter. It's just a good aid. I actually have a T7i unmodified. It's perfect. Sometimes I use that for galaxies. It's better for galaxies. Anyway, the nebula will be shot with this, and inside I have a filter, a Astromink 12 MA filter, which will block out a lot of the light pollution. Here's another thing. It's also going to block out the moonlight. Yeah, I like the moon, but when it comes to deep sky object photography, the moon is not my friend. No likey, no like the moon. So what I do is I put that filter in, and it not only blocks out the city lights, block out the moonlight. Get that thing going. Now, this is a telescope. This lens, this little thing, believe it or not, is a telescope. It is the TPO Astrophotography lens 180 millimeter telescope. It is a 180 millimeter focal length with an aperture of only 40. And believe it or not, this is what would be considered a wide angle lens. It is a lens that can grab a good portion of sky. Believe it or not, the Veil Nebula is kind of big in the sky. If you go on websites like Stellarium, which shows you where it is in the night sky in relation to the constellation Cygnus, it kind of holds a big part. So this is a good, I wouldn't recommend something more than probably 200 millimeter focal length to get the Veil Nebula. One good thing about the Cygnus region is that there's a lot of nebula action going on there. You got the North American Nebula, you got the Sator region. I'm planning on shooting all that with this and the Rokinon 135 millimeter, which ain't even a telescope, it's a lens. I'm gonna do a video on that later this summer. So I have this connected to a dummy battery, which is connected to power so I don't run out of juice during the night of filming. I also have a AIS Air Pro, which is a small computer, a little red computer that will help connect to the camera, connect the camera to that, and I use my iPad to see everything on that as opposed to seeing everything on the little display screen here. It's a great way to, it also helps you find the object. Like if you hit a button called annotate in the app that goes with that computer, and I'll do a whole video on how to run that, all right? Because I'm getting too ahead of myself here. The point is, I have the proper equipment here for that. I have a 120 millimeter guide scope for auto guiding. This is connected to the Star Adventurer 2Y and through a kind of like a telephone kind of wire, like an Ethernet almost, where it kind of like, if the star starts trailing off a little bit, it kind of, the camera that's connected, which is a 120 millimeter ASI mini guide camera connected to the guide scope, it goes right into the Star Adventurer and lets it know, hey, you're going off a little bit, fix it. And it well, oh my bad, and then it kind of like readjusts itself. Because a big thing that happens when you do a long exposure, like 3 minutes, even on something like this, is that it's possible for stars to start trailing a little bit, so you get streaking. You don't want that. So that helps fix that, all right? And that's it, really. So I'm gonna take this baby outside tonight, and at the end of the video, I'm gonna show you the end result of the Veil Nebula, supernova remnant in the night sky, here from the Bronx, New York. Until then, Ralph Perez from Astro Bronx Cafe. If you like this information, please like the video and consider subscribing. Take care.